Okay. So thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. This is Civil Engineering Industry Hour. This is a program sponsored by the School of Engineering Advising Hub, where we invite alum back to campus or virtually to talk about what they've been doing since they've graduated. So today's agenda, we have a brief presentation about the Career Center or the CCPD on campus. And then we're going to introduce our panel of professionals. We have two civil engineering alumni joining us along with a current student. We're going to interview them and then leave room for question and answers. And if you have questions for our panelists, please put those in the chat ahead of time and we will be happy to address those going forward. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the Career Center and Professional Development Office. This is located in the DCC, which is next to the JEC, which is where our office is. So if you haven't come to see us yet, we can always point you in the direction of the DCC as well. Now, we do have an engineering career counselor liaison. Her name is Kristen Kettering, and her contact information is here. She's very knowledgeable about all of the relationships that we have with employers on campus, and she can also do a lot of different things to assist you with the process if you're looking for internships, even research. Just touching base with Kristen earlier rather than later is always recommended from our office here in the hub. So some of the services that the CCPD provides, we encourage you to book a meeting with them sooner than later. You could set that up on Handshake. So the website's right there, rpijoinhandshake.com. So if you haven't done that already, make it a priority because it's really helpful to have that resource available to you because there's a wealth of information on Handshake, including relationship with employers and different opportunities. And you could customize your Handshake account to kind of detail the information specifically that you're interested in receiving. The Career Center has drop-in hours from 1 to 3 on Monday through Friday. They hold a variety of workshops and they even offer professional headshots if you needed something like that. They have a Discord server and we always hear great things about their career clothing closet. That's a mouthful. So if you do land an interview and you don't have anything to wear, visit the CCPD because they could set you up with some professional attire. So all of those things are resources that they provide, plus many more. So like I said, it's definitely something that we encourage as advisors for you to counter with that office sooner than later. Now, one of the questions that we receive from a lot of students is, where am I going to work if I become employed as a civil engineer? And this is just a sampling of some of the offices and companies that our current RPI alum have relationships with. Civil engineering is pretty broad, so you could be employed in various consulting firms, and just look at the sampling here. You could see a full list on the Career Center's Handshake account, or you can even look and visit Kristen specifically for more information. And a couple of statistics from last year's graduating class. Basically, civil engineering falls in the range of reporting. Around 70,000 is the entry-level job for a civil engineer with their bachelor's degree. Granted, this is a smaller major, so the reporting might be small, but the range is quite broad between 60 and 85,000. And if you can compare those among the other disciplines within the School of Engineering as well. And now I'm going to introduce our panelists. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and have everybody introduce themselves. So we will start with Maureen. I know Bill is here, but we've had some tech issues, so we're going to wait on introducing him, but we'll start with Maureen and then go to Gavin.
All right, I'll buy Bill some time.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Maureen Merson. I am RPI class of 2015. Let's see, you had my name, work history, where am I from, and where do I live? So I grew up in the Southwest and I moved out to this area to go to RPI and I never left. Now I still live in Troy. My work history is a little bit interesting. I got a degree in civil engineering because I really wanted to, work on big projects. And I knew I wanted to do that for a long time. And I was employed as a civil engineer for about 5 or 6 years. And then I was harassed and let go from a company and really didn't think I was going to stay in the industry, but ended up coming back to it because I know that I love it and I, always wanted to do this, and feel like that experience, as terrible as it was, gave me a lot of perspective into the industry and how to, move forward. Um, and my degree from RPI was civil engineering because I work in civil engineering.
Thanks, Maureen. And Gavin is our current student. So, Gavin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your current year? Um, yeah, let us know.
A thing, yeah. My name is Gavin Fusco. I'm a current junior civil engineer, and I'm from Wilton, Connecticut, and currently living off campus, but here in Troy still, which is great. Uh, Last summer I was able to intern at Langen, actually, so I was able to work in New Haven last summer for the Arch Away, and that was a good experience, which I'll probably end up talking about more later.
Excellent, Gavin. Thank you. And Bill, you're back. We're happy to
Yeah.
see you. Okay, so Bill, would you mind introducing yourself, giving us a little bit about your work history, where you are,
Yeah.
where you were previous, and all the good stuff?
Yep. So I'm Bill Gilbert. I'm a structural engineer that works at AECOM here in Latham, New York. Um, I've been working at AECOM for about going on 8 years now, and I've been working there since I graduated from RPI in 2016. Pretty much nature of the work I do is mostly bridges and transportation structures. So before AECOM, I know I had a couple internships, but I've been pretty much there since I've graduated. So
Excellent. Well, nice to see you guys, and thank you for joining us. And we're going to start with our questions. We'll start with Maureen first, and this is actually a question for Maureen and Bill. Um, the biggest question that everybody has is what made you want to decide to be a civil engineer? So, do you want to start, Maureen, on that?
Yeah, I guess I kind of started to answer that question before. I knew I always wanted to work on big projects. And I kind of had that sense from a fairly young age. But what I realized about civil engineering that really drew me into civil engineering and why I like it is because with civil engineering, there's this civil service aspect of what you do. What you do and the calculations you do in order to make sure that structures are standing is all for the health and safety of the public. And that ends up driving a lot of the motivations within the industry. And that's what sucked me into the industry that really drew me. I really wanted to kind of give back in a way by my profession.
Excellent. And Bill?
yeah, I guess going off what Maureen said, a similar thing for me is that I feel like you get a real sense of fulfillment with what you do with civil engineering, and that you see in the real world the real application of your efforts. If I have people I know that are like packaging engineers and like kind of goes unnoticed or stuff like that. Not to be critical of them, but for me, I came into RPI undecided engineering. But I think when I look more closely to like my own talents or my own desires, it definitely spoke to me. I wasn't as computer savvy as other people, I guess. Like so, being comp sci or electrical engineering was kind of off the table. So, but I definitely, for me, it's that when you design and build stuff, you get to see it and people get to use it every day.
Awesome. Now, Gavin, since you're not officially a civil engineer, can you tell us why you chose the major and maybe a little bit about that backstory?
Yeah, I actually didn't even come to RPI originally in civil engineering. I originally applied here as computer science, and I enjoyed that for like the the programming aspect of like working on like problem solving and whatnot. But when I actually started taking more of the harder classes throughout my first year, I kind of realized that it wasn't really for me. And so I started looking into some of the engineering classes, and I kind of had my mind preset on civil when I was looking at other engineering classes to take. And I think for me, it was mostly because like I kind of like the whole construction process, and I think that was very interesting to me. And I guess you could say like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree because my dad does that too in construction management. And I thought, I mean, I'll do a different aspect of that, but it seemed like something that would be interesting to do. And as it was previously said, like you get to see the scope of your work. Like you get to see massive structures be built over time when you're working on a project. You get to see it go from nothing to a massive building that people will be using every day. And I think that's pretty interesting.
I never even thought about it that way, but it's true. It must be very rewarding to see something that you had a hand in designing and having it come to fruition. And thank you guys. Now, students also ask us a little bit about the industry before, we have these conversations prefacing academic planning. And what would be the roles and titles that are common in the civil industry? So if they're looking for jobs, what would be something like a job title that they would be looking for? Anybody who wants to chime in.
Well, I had kind of a non-traditional path to getting the role that I'm currently in. I'm currently a division manager. But I think it kind of breaks down into two different paths, which are pretty common, which is either like you're going to be a really technical expert, or you're going to be more management and project management and kind of, coordinating lots and lots of details. And I think those are the two main tracks that people would go down, but there's a lot of different nuances with how your career develops as you decide what you like in your career.
Oh yeah, pretty much consider better myself. My title is just structural engineer, but definitely been so far in my career leaning more towards the technical side. But yeah, that's what I've seen is, you'll see maybe depending upon your concentration in engineering, you might see something like civil engineer general or geotechnical or highway designer. Um, but they're all kind of encompassing the same kind of thing. Just, you know, it seems like the technical side's more focused to your skill set, and then project manager, deputy project manager, director. I mean,
And there's a lot of different branches too of civil engineering. My technical area of expertise was geotechnical, which is all the stuff to do with the dirt and the ground, which is very different from what Bill does with analyzing the structure and being a structural engineer, which is very different from someone who's, like tracking people movements and data in order to make better transportation systems. So there's a kind of a wide range of how it can play out in terms of your career and what specialty area you go into.
if you don't like one, you can always go to another.
True.
Flexibility is good for that, for sure. Now, tell us more about the day-to-day function of your job specifically, because it would be helpful for somebody to be able to imagine themselves as an engineer in describing what your day looks like. So, Maureen, do you want to start with your division management role?
So my day to day is problem solving all sorts of different problems you've never seen before. Like putting out fires is how some people put it. Being at the level that I'm at, I kind of have to oversee a whole bunch of different technical people and make sure that projects are on track, but also that the direction that the company is headed on track. And there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's all very engineering mindset, problem solving mindset, but it's not engineering as you learn it in school at all. It's very much building on those problem solving skills that you get from being in school.
What would you say is your favorite part of your day or one of your days?
I think the best part is when I realize that someone is like learning and getting something, and I can see them starting to develop these technical tools, this problem solving mindset. And those moments where you just see people, or you see it, you see it click, and you see them start to ask really good questions, and they're thinking about things without you telling them exactly, exactly guiding them. It- it's seeing that development in others is what I find most rewarding. And I wouldn't call that a day-to-day thing, but that's definitely most rewarding. Hopefully it can be day-to-day, but
Awesome. How about you, Bill?
Yeah, no, I'd love for me, my day as more technical side would definitely be more towards the, like doing calculations, like especially with bridges, I have a wide range of stuff I'm doing, like a lot of times I'm doing support for geotechnical work too. But so like, with bridges, you like can kind of start out top down and just start designing, running through code, design software, and then when you kind of get an idea of like, member sizes and stuff, you transition into like to a CAD mode where you start drafting and drawing, and then when that's all done, you kind of get into an estimating mode because for DOT jobs, the engineers have to provide a cost estimate. So you're definitely wearing a different hat every day. And then with my position being more of a, mid-level technical guy is, I'm overseeing like three uh people, two recent hires that both graduated this past semester, or I guess last spring. And like we have also CAD drafters, so finding them things to do, keeping them busy. But especially for the new junior engineers, it is a lot of teaching. So like I feel like I'm most like a good half of my day is teaching, but I do enjoy that part a lot because I think it kind of comes easy to me, and I can kind of just ramble off about stuff that I know for a long time. And but yeah, like Maureen was saying, like there is something rewarding about like when they finally do start to get it, and they like you give them a little bit and they just kind of take it off on their own, or they even prove you wrong. I get proven wrong just as much as I get proven right. So that's been pretty rewarding for me.
Awesome. And it's kind of like a learning experience for everybody, including you. So I think that that is rewarding. Now, Gavin, you told us that you had done an internship previously. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did as an intern and what you enjoyed about it?
Yeah, so at Langen, I worked with their site civil team. And when I applied, I thought it was like a general civil thing, but it focused more on site work, which is something that I don't think really gets taught much in the general classes that at least I've taken so far. And I thought it was interesting. I got to learn about using CAD even more than I did in like the intro class that they teach, just kind of the basics. But I got to get to use that more. I was able to learn about how just generally site design works and also the permitting aspect of it, which is something I didn't really consider before having a job. And then it was sort of like all the paperwork and submittals that you go through, and it's like it's a lot that goes into these projects. And I think on top of that is also I got to do a bit of stormwater work and design, which was this current semester I'm taking applied hydrology, and that was something that I got to learn beforehand. So coming into the class, I kind of had a leg up on it, which was nice.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we touched on this a little bit in your intros with like focus areas, but students are required to pursue a focus in one of the following areas, namely transportation, structural engineering, geotechnical engineering, and water resource engineering. How would you classify the type of work that you do? And do you feel the disciplines can overlap? Which I kind of know the answer to, but I'd love to hear you guys explain it. So whoever wants to start first is cool with me.
I think mine is closest to geotechnical, but now I'm in the construction inspection world, and that kind of is just about everything and anything that could be involved in the project. So I think it includes a much broader range, but probably more of the structural and geotechnical than water resources. There's some of that, there's less of it. And transportation also, there's some of that, there's a lot less of it.
For me, definitely I get into all of them. You know, especially when we do sometimes like local county bridge jobs, you know, like I might be the guy that's doing the trying to figure out the geotechnical properties while I'm doing the structure design and also doing the highway design. Granted, it might be for like 100 feet beyond the bridge that you're reworking and keeping the existing alignment or something like that. But um, you know, I found with bridges, it's definitely a lot of trades get interlapped. You know, hydrology especially because most bridges go over water. So understanding that, because you know you can't have a bridge within a, you know, you're constricting a waterway, so understanding hydrology is important. Um, my title, my predominant focus, obviously, yeah, is structures. You know, like doing the superstructure and substructure design of a bridge. But I always get pulled into the other lanes. It feels like.
Awesome. And Gavin, what focus area are you pursuing right now? And tell us a little bit about the electives that you might have taken or plan to be taking.
Yeah, I'll be getting started with electives starting next semester, but I'm currently looking at, I think, concentrating in structural because they offer steel and concrete design. So I'll be starting to take those. And then I think as well for the technical electives, I've looked at some of the other next level courses like foundation and highway, I believe. So it's more like, 'cause I'm pretty sure highway is listed under both water resources and transportation because I think it deals with sort of the infrastructure in regards to all of transportation design and whatnot, which I thought was pretty interesting as like a general overarching topic.
Absolutely. And for our audience, just so they're aware, the intro courses that we are talking about, where those focuses derive from, are going to be courses that you would take in sophomore spring semester. So all of the intro courses you take, and then you kind of pick your favorite, and then we do the course planning for the design and technical electives that Gavin was talking about moving after that. So you have a little bit of time as a freshman before you get there, but conversations can happen early on if you do have questions. Great. So moving on, this question is for Maureen and Bill. Many students often ask about the type of engineering work that you do, whether it's office work or if it's site. And you know, you kind of given us an overview of what you do specifically, but what do you feel classifies the work that you do? Do you think it's a hybrid? Do you feel like it's one thing or the other? Just tell us a little bit more about that specifically.
Well, it's some of both. Um, I think my experience has been that geotechnical, and now the construction inspection world definitely lean heavy into field. Um, just being out, getting eyes on the site, being involved in some portion of overseeing things actually physically at the location. Um, so I think that if you want to do really well in the geotechnical concentration, you probably will succeed more if you're someone who actually enjoys being outside and can get something from those experiences and aren't too unhappy because there's a lot you have to pick up on when you're outside. So if you're happy when you're outside, it's a little bit easier to learn things than if you're grouchy when you're outside. So I guess I would say it leans more field heavy than office. But I think with any engineering career, as you go further on down your career, you get sucked into the office more and more and more.
Yeah, I think it's always a mix depending upon your role. Like projects, jobs, the role you face in them always kind of change. There was a period where I was in the field for 2 years on an Amtrak job doing construction management for them. We had a contract for it, and we're like the closest one. So because we're a bigger company, I drew a short straw, but definitely learned a lot there. It was a landslide remediation over a railroad track, so really outside of my realm, more heavy geotech realm. But you learn the field side, you learn very quickly. You gain a better perspective, which I think makes you better like engineer in the office or kind of like, like doing a design or two. You learn firsthand importance when you see somebody out in the field struggling to read a set of plans and like cursing up the engineer, like why can't they make this more clear? You realize the importance of like clear, like those soft skills that you don't always get with a or that kind of gets sideswiped with a technical degree sometimes. Like an ability to communicate. There's no point designing anything if you can't communicate the design to the people that are building it. So field stuff definitely gives you a perspective that I think is invaluable. And it gives you variety in life too, which is always good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
you get to
guys.
interact with different people, and sometimes things are a little bit more obvious than when you're in the office thinking about the problem. When you're out in the field thinking about the problem, sometimes things just kind of hit you in the face.
Yeah, like as super tell me seeing is believing, because like you could be looking at a piece of paper forever and then like you see it in 2 seconds when you're out there like, oh, okay.
Awesome. Now, we're going to loop everybody into this next question because we're going to talk about undergrad experience. So think back to when you were at school at RPI. Um, did you do internships? Did you join professional groups? Did you have extracurriculars? This question's for everyone. So just give us an idea of what your undergrad experience looks like and maybe what you would recommend for current students to get involved to be most productive with their time and have a good time doing it.
I'll be honest, I struggled through my undergraduate. I was definitely at the bottom of the class, not the top of the class. I failed or came close to failing some classes during my time at RPI, and I think I felt like a lot of it was a struggle, although there were a lot of really valuable things I got out of my undergrad. And I feel like after leaving RPI and now being in the workforce, I just appreciate my experience at RPI so much more because even though I wasn't realizing it and I was like struggling through things, it gave me the tools to be able to deal with a lot of things that my peers in the workforce weren't quite yet prepared to deal with. So I felt like it gave me a leg up in a lot of ways too, having struggled through that whole 4 years.
Yeah, I feel that too. My first 2 years were definitely by far the toughest. Like coming from high school into RPI, or like, especially I went to a small high school. You're kind of at the top there, and expecting that effort, and then, oh no, I'm not smart anywhere near as smart as I thought I was. First 2 years were rough, but I feel like once I got more to civil heavy stuff, and I was doing something that I felt was more in line with what I thought I wanted to do for a living. It kind of changed. And at that time, like I was going heavy trying to get as many classes as I could so I could do the co-term program and graduate earlier with that. Um, but other than that, like my last 2 years was like old school, but I also like did the concrete canoe competition with ASCE, so where we kind of build a canoe out of concrete and race it against other schools. So definitely that was a fun thing to do if you end up becoming choosing civil engineering for your major, definitely get involved in ASC and give the concrete canoe and steel bridge competitions a try, because you do learn a lot of teamwork and kind of functional engineering experience more so than most classes, I guess, can give you.
Yeah, I think for me at least, my first year adjusting to RPI was definitely rough. It was a big difference, especially with a lot of their intro courses to like general math and like general science classes. But once you get more into your more major oriented classes, it gets a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable because you're doing what you're interested, what you're there for. But I also did the some of the ASE events. Last year I was with the Steel Bridge build team, and that was a lot of fun. You get to do a lot of the team building exercises and whatnot. It's very fun. And I know that you can also they have the design teams for both of those as well. If you take the steel or concrete design classes, you get to participate in that as well, which is fun. And I guess one other thing that I do on campus is Habitat for Humanity, which is fun. I think because it's building houses for people in need, and I mean that it's pretty applicable to civil engineering. So it's fun to get more of the hands-on experience actually building stuff and whatnot.
Awesome, thank you. And to your point too, I think that what you said about struggling in the first 2 years will resonate with our students now because the gen eds are boring. Like you're in chemistry and you're in math and you're in like just these courses that you have to kind of chip away at to get to the major specific things. So the fact that you bring that up is something that we talk about so often, and hearing it from you validates that. I'm like, don't worry, it gets better. You just have to put your head down and get through it, you know? And that's I appreciate that you guys said that. Um, Kind of building off of that a little bit, students turn around and say, well, am I ever going to use this again? Is this class going to be applicable to anything I'm going to do as a civil engineer? And those questions are kind of hard for me to answer since I'm not a civil engineer. But if you can weigh in on your perspective, do you feel that your undergrad curriculum is carrying on and allowing you to perform well in your career? Bill, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. Yeah, you always, I mean, definitely more towards the end, at like the last 2 years of your schooling, you're going to use that stuff way more, I feel, than the earlier stuff. But the later stuff's not really doable without the earlier stuff. You know, like I had to take DiffyQ. Have I ever done a differential equation in my life? No. Am I glad for that? Yes. But like strength of materials, do I use that every day? Yes. And understanding that very thoroughly, or you know, my material science class I took, that has helped in its own ways. Even thermals and fluids engineering has helped when I've had to do some water structures when trying to figure out what the pressure is, you know, of an inclined surface underwater. So you never know what's going to come back. Um, Thankfully, the like more difficult math or more difficult physics is kind of like codified, so you don't have to like rederive that stuff. But it's more so like anything. It's not like learning; it's learning how to learn. Because there's always going to be things that you don't know and no one else has ever done before, but you're going to have to try to make an educated decision on. And I think that's kind of what RPI prepares you for, is not necessarily that they're going to prepare you for everything that you need to know, but that you're going to be capable enough to make an effort to learn what you need to know to do your job.
Yeah, I'd say that exactly what Bill said. Those fundamental classes, those entry level classes kind of give you the foundation, even if you're not using all of that information all the time. But I will say that earlier this week, I found it very useful that I remembered at least something from, what's it called, MAU, Modeling and Analysis of Uncertainty, because it came up with the annual accreditation for my lab that some of the test results that we'd gotten were, you know, way off, and it came with a long printout of statistics, and I had to go back and, oh yeah, that's what that is. Oh, that's why I learned this at some point. So you also never know when some of those random things are going to be very, very useful to you figuring out what to do in your job in the future.
That's great because MAU is always a class that students are kind of like, "Ooh, I have to take a statistics class." Ooh. So, hey, yes, that will provide you some information going forward in your career. Now, on the flip side, this question's for everyone. Um, we always talk about humanities, arts, and social sciences, aka Haas, and also free electives. And students often say, what should I take to fulfill that and make me more marketable? Is it necessary to take something to make yourself more marketable? Or do you think, tell me what you guys did for Haas and free electives and if you have any recommendations for our students. And anyone can start.
I could go first. Just try and remember. I know I took a creative writing class, and I would say that one definitely did help a lot because with engineering, there's going to be, there's a lot of math, there's a lot of report writing, but there's also with creative writing, you get kind of a good aspect of how to communicate to an audience effectively. And I think that is one of the most important things that you're going to find when you get a career is that like everyone knows what's in their own mind. It's hard to take that and give it to somebody else. So if you're trying to teach new hires, you're being able to learn how to communicate with them and try to put yourself back into perspective of like what was it like not to remember how to do all this stuff, like being able to put yourself in their shoes, or even talking with clients or trying to communicate. I've been involved in things where like things go wrong in construction, the state has us review it for what went wrong, and then you have to tell another engineer and a contractor what they did wrong and try to convince them that what they did was wrong. And do that effectively is a very difficult thing. So getting used to speaking publicly is a big one. And probably another thing which I wish I'd taken but didn't take would probably be a drawing class because hand sketches are kind of really important, especially if you're doing field work or even like trying to teach other people, like if you can kind of draw something up quickly to show them, that can do a lot to help show rather than like, oh, you put this thing here and that there, and hopefully they can and wonder if they're illustrating in their mind what you're saying. So, yeah, those would be a few.
I had a somewhat different experience. I took the what was it called? Sustainability studies minor. And I don't know if it still works this way or not, but I was able to, while I was taking those really rough 2000 level intro courses, I was able to take some higher level humanities courses. And I felt like that kind of kept me going and helped balance things out because that provided the context that I wasn't getting in an entry level engineering class for how things or how what is decided in terms of the engineering world can be applied and what its impacts are going to be and the context of how all of that's going to work together with different shareholders and different interested parties in the environment. And so I felt like being able to do humanities courses kind of kept me connected to the rest of the world, especially during that part of my time at RPI when you're kind of like forced into this bubble of really hard math and physics and just, grinding through it. So I felt like that was really, for me personally, useful because I was able to kind of keep my head on and realize, what was important and what wasn't important.
Awesome. And Gavin, tell us about what you're doing. Did you do anything specific with humanities, free electives, any electives that you would recommend?
Well, my schedule's a little all over the place because of coming in with comp sci. So my free electives are currently all taken up by the classes I took freshman year for that. And I mean, unless you're pursuing anything with computers and whatnot, I wouldn't recommend taking them for, I guess, for fun and whatnot. They're very work intensive for introductory courses. But I do think that programming is still something that's like pretty useful to at least have like a base level knowledge of. Because I mean, I'm taking IED right now, the intro to engineering design, and for that project, we're like designing a gizmo gadget, whatnot. But it's useful to have, especially as a civil engineer, it's useful to have something more like, I guess, programming, something more software based that can be utilized in that course a bit better. And I think it's in the civil program as well, but engineering economics, I think economics as well is just offered here as well. But that was also something that I found was pretty useful because it's generally like a useful life skill to have with like computing money and whatnot, and also like interest and all that. That's something you'll use in the future, especially getting with taxes and whatnot now.
That's definitely true. And Bill and Maureen, prior, more recently, we've required that students doing their humanities has to do a pathway. So they do 3 courses of related materials. So economics happens to be a very popular pathway for that very reason with our engineering students. And to Maureen's point, I have about half of my civil engineers currently doing the sustainability pathway. So it goes along those lines as well. So thank you for that, guys. And I'm probably going to move away from undergrad, but I have one more question for you because we just finished the second round of exams, and you know how it could be a little downtrodden in our office about students who are struggling. And we touched on it briefly about, can you tell us a specific course that you struggled with here and maybe what you did to overcome it? Because a lot of times students have this high expectation that they're going to get A's in everything, and that's not always the case. But knowing that you struggle and still are successful in your careers kind of gives it a little bit different of a perspective. So this question's for everyone, so feel free to take the lead, whoever wants to.
I struggled with let's see, it was intro to programming. Almost failed that one. Intro or strengths of materials, almost failed that one. And I did fail intro to structures. So I retook strengths of materials and intro to structures, and it was really hard the second time around too. And I think that I learned a lot from failing those. What I learned was that I am not the type of person who likes to chug through pages of algebra in order to get to the concept. I lose the concept when I'm chugging through algebra. I don't learn the concept. But that was very valuable information for me to have about myself and how I learn in order to figure out how to learn the information I needed to learn.
Yeah, I almost failed intro to programming too. There's just something about like programming that just didn't make sense to me. And confirm my station as a civil engineer. But yeah, everyone was physics too. You know, like doing the electricity and magnetism. Like I just couldn't do it. Like strength of material stuff, physical, you know, classic mechanics. That all made sense to me. But once you started getting abstract, it went out the door. Um,
See, I
and
love
yeah,
the abstract mechanics of soil mechanics are much more abstract than
oh yeah, no,
material mechanics.
soil mechanics was hard for me. Um, and the other thing was the thing that really convinced me I wouldn't be a genius structural engineer, like the real big high rise stuff, and kept me in bridges was like when I took structural dynamics and trying to find like, which was a graduate class, and that one I as a for co-term, if you get anything below a C, you don't get credit for it. So I was dangerously close from that C minus the C range, and it was my last semester, and I needed that one last class. So I was like, I was definitely freaking out there. But I went to the professor to try to get help, and I think luckily it was my last exam, and I had 2 weeks between. I had no exams for 2 weeks, and it was the last day of exams, so I had a lot of time to study for it. But yeah, trying to find like doing like a 40, 50 page algebra derivation to figure out the natural frequency of a building and stuff like that during an earthquake was like, I never want to do that again, ever. But but luckily, if you are a structural engineer, doesn't mean you have to go to the extreme side there. There's much more simpler structures that I like better. But it's, seek the resources that are available to like probably, go to professors, get help from classmates. You know, if you don't ask for help, you don't get help, kind of deal.
And that's the great thing about RPI, at least I feel like it's very collaborative. Even if the class is graded on a curve, I feel like everyone's still helping each other out. And that's one thing you're not going to get at any other school, which is like what I always tell people is like the best part of RPI is that you get to work with other people and they actually help each other.
Yeah, no one's hiding stuff from you. Like everyone's more yeah, everyone's more than eager to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for what's it called, for classes and whatnot, getting help. I think for me, one thing that was hard was with lab reports, formatting, all that. So going to office hours is really helpful. You'll get either the professor or a TA to help kind of explain sort of what they want and what guidelines you kind of have to follow. And that also goes for like studying for tests and whatnot. I think ASCE does sometimes they'll do events where it's just study sessions where they'll have a room in one of the buildings and you'll just go and work.
Awesome. And I'm going to put a shameless plug in for the hub because all first year students have us as a resource as well. So adding to everything else that you're doing with professors, you can always come to us if you're lost because we could point you in the right direction as well. So thanks, guys. That's super helpful. Now let's talk about, I know Bill mentioned doing his master's and stuff like that. So, can we talk about master's degrees in civil engineering? Do you recommend those? Professional engineering license? Um, and just, you know, we hear a lot of different grumblings, but as a first year, it seems so far in the distance that a lot of students are left with questions. So, if you want to just talk about that process a little bit, that'd be great.
Sure, I could go first. So yeah, for at least from my experience and then from what I've seen from people that we've hired fresh out of school is that the master's degree definitely does help. Mostly because especially with like structural based stuff is like with the core degree that you take, you're gonna have only 2 design classes. But with a master's degree, you'll have to take about 10 more. So you really get a much more deeper understanding of a lot of different things, and it's also a time where you can take and like for my master's degree, I kind of took a mixture of like geotechnical and structural, which has absolutely helped me out a lot. You know, I took and some construction management stuff, and it's all kind of come into play in their own right. Every single one I took, every single class I took, and then when it came time for getting my PE license, it definitely helped a lot there because when you take a PE exam as a structural engineer, you're going to have to learn how to do different material design, such as masonry design or timber design. And the core classes, you only take concrete and steel. So you really miss out on probably the more unique things that, you know, might be a little more difficult to learn on your own. Or if you don't deal with that every day and you know, you don't work with timber, you're still going to learn timber. Um, so it's definitely helpful there. The thing I do recommend is that anybody that can is like try to, I mean, like my last 2 years at RPI, I was taking 7 classes a semester, which was insane. I wish I didn't do that, but I did graduate with the master's degree like when 1 year, or sorry, not 1 year, 1 semester more. So I was graduating in December of 2016. You know, I didn't start off strong, but I guess I did end strong. So, but I definitely recommend it, especially if you can double up or if you had a lot of AP classes. Like I came in with no AP class, only 4 credits of AP. Had I had 4 credits more, I would have been able to graduate without having to go an extra semester. But if you're somebody that came in with a lot of AP credits and can kind of double up on some of, you know, use some of your electives towards the master's level design classes, you know, you can graduate relatively quickly with a master's degree, which is going to be harder to do when you're working full time or other commitments in life start to pop up. And also while you're still in education mode, you know, you don't want to like stop the momentum going when you've been doing school for the last 22 years and like, you know, have to come back to reschool again. But
Yeah, I'll mirror what Bill said. I think that a master's makes you more valuable to your employers, and it's always good to be more valuable because that will help you, but it's not necessarily something that you need in order to succeed. The same thing goes for the PE. Definitely makes you a lot more valuable to your employers if you start going through the process of getting licensed as an engineer, but it's not necessarily something you need to succeed. But without having those, you will have to work a lot harder, and you may have to take a very strange career path. And I can say that from personal experience because I do not have a master's and I do not have a PE. And I end up in a division manager role. So it's definitely possible, but I had to take a very circuitous career route where I ended up in business development and doing some other things that were kind of in parallel. But if they hadn't succeeded, it would have kind of pushed me out of engineering entirely. So I will say that, what Bill did, definitely, if you know or if you start to have a good idea about what your path's going to be, following a path like that will set you up for success in a much nearer term.
Thank you. Now, Gavin, I know you're a year away from graduating, but have you thought about what you're going to do post-graduation at this point?
Yeah, I realized that I probably should take advantage of the RPI coterm, so I started planning that out over the last like month or so. And I know that a lot of that stuff you don't have to submit till the semester before graduating, but it's really helpful to get ahead on it to sort of because at least with what I have right now with my courses, I'm able to start taking some of my courses for my master's next semester and also in the fall next year. So sort of getting ahead on that as soon as possible so you can have it all pre-planned out is really nice. And especially because I didn't even come in a civil freshman year. I think that you're still able to kind of realize everything and plan it out. There's a lot more time than you think to kind of figure things out.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Now, I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, so I'm just going to jump to kind of closing thoughts and also just a question of thinking back to freshman year. What do you wish you knew as a first year college student that you know now? If there's any advice that you could give to our current freshmen, what would it be? And that's a question for all of you. So whoever wants to take the lead on that is fine.
I guess I could go, because I know this one, but definitely don't be afraid to ask for help. My, I was somebody that like in high school was pretty more independent with my studies. I didn't feel like I needed to ask ever for help. And when I came to RPI, I was viciously proven wrong. And I didn't take advantage of like the stuff where like the, Center for Career where they had mentoring opportunities or like study hours for like a lot of your core classes. I thought if I focus on it and try to learn myself that I would eventually pull through, but I almost failed a couple classes because of that, kind of arrogance on my own end. So don't be afraid to uh, ask for help and finding the options. And also, the other regret I had was like not being more involved in probably extracurricular activities. Like having that balance and having that thing to look forward to outside of your coursework, I think definitely improved my college experience later on, but I severely regret, I think to this, today, that's a bigger regret.
That makes sense. Um, that's a hard question that you asked, Karen. I feel like the biggest thing is realizing that everything is a learning experience, even if it's not like predefined as something that you're supposed to be learning or not learning. Like you can learn from the entirety of college in the classroom, out of the classroom, you know, working with people and how friend groups are made, and everything is a learning experience. So I think that's one thing I wish I knew earlier on, because I would just be mad at myself for failing at something that I didn't think I was supposed to be failing at. But if you're not failing at something, you're not learning and you're not growing. So I think that that kind of mentality that you're always learning, no matter what happens, is very important to remember.
I mean, I'm still in school right now, but I think for me, if I were to go back to my freshman year, I'd probably want to go out to more of the events and clubs and whatnot that RPI offers, because I think I didn't really do much my first year extracurricular wise, but then my sophomore year and now this my junior year as well, I'm starting to get more involved with things on campus, and it's a lot more enjoyable. You get to meet a lot more people, and we have a fairly large student body, but also a small enough school where you'll be recognizing people when you walk around sometimes. So it's nice to see more people around and be able to strike more conversation and be more involved with the whole campus, and that's makes you feel more at home, I guess.
That because this is your home for 4 years, maybe 5, depending on if you do your master's. So you definitely want to network and be close to the people that you're living with. Guys, I want to thank you. We do have some students on. If they have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're happy to ask our panelists. So if you have any questions, please type them up. We'll hang out for a few more minutes. And like I said, thank you for joining us today because I always find these to be so informative. I learn, and I love how you phrase things because, you know, RPI is really hard, and I think that our students are experiencing that now. So showing that it teaches you to be an advocate for yourself and resilience in your careers, I think is a phenomenal attribute. So I think it definitely puts you through the mill while you're here, but it's to your benefit, as you guys have explained. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, okay. We have one here. Jen, you want to read that? If you have access to it?
I do.
Okay.
Have you ever had any unexpected career paths or roles since graduation?
Most definitely. I started out post-graduation in a very entry-level role doing field inspections for geotechnical. Then I was like, okay, I did some field inspections. Now I'm going to move on to doing some design. And then that's where the career path went sideways. And I ended up not in the engineering industry without a job for more than a year, kind of questioning everything. And I ended up back in the position of working in engineering again because of the relationship I built with someone. And I could see this person being a really supportive boss. And finding that person that could support you and kind of be a good mentor to you for what my needs were allowed me to have exposure to C-suite people at a very low level in the company, and then work on my leadership development skills and be able to move into doing things like business development that are often reserved only for more senior level people because someone saw that that's what I would be good at. So having that moment, that opportunity to really assess the person who will be your boss when you are picking and choosing where you're going to work. And you know, they're interviewing you, but in some ways you're interviewing them too, because if they're going to be a really good boss, that's going to allow you to go in a direction with your career that you might not have because they're going to see your strengths and they're going to help you work towards all of the things that you might not otherwise have opportunity to work on. So that's been my experience. Now into my most recent role has been managing a construction inspection company for the area. And that role was also kind of unexpected, but that was because I gained the confidence to say, hey, I want to get into senior leadership at a company. And when recruiters started calling me, which recruiters will inevitably start calling you, and they will be relentless, I just told them that, and they found a position in a company that worked for me and what I had as my personal values and my own career goals. So I would say a lot more than you think is about the interpersonal relationships that you develop along the way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think Maureen graduated, like, were you a year ahead of me, Maureen? I can't remember. Was it
2015.
Yeah. So she's already like pretty accelerated for her career. And like, again, she did do it with, like, PE or master's degree. So it's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you.
No, but no, but I mean, like, so don't ever feel like you're short-sighting yourself because you don't take a route that everybody else takes. You take the routes that are kind of brought to you and don't be afraid of it. Like for me, I'm like a walking like cliche of an engineer, like but like my mentors early on were very tech savvy and I learned a lot from them and I think that gave me confidence in the technical abilities I've been doing. So you know, where you end up picking is going to kind of groom you into who you become too. So like I do calcs all day, or I draw drafting, or you know, uh, I still use a lot of textbooks I have from school. So it's like kind of very cliche or stereotypical. Um, but I like doing it. I'm comfortable in it. So at least this phase of my life, I haven't really strayed far from it. But I think if you're somebody that wants to take risk and you're driven, that you can go anywhere with it.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the value of just if you're interested in something, asking someone about it, asking if there are opportunities to work on that, or just trying to learn more about it yourself, even outside of classes or your work opportunities. Because those things that you're interested in often provide that drive for you to be able to, choose a path that's more personalized to you.
If you hate what you do, you're not going to want to do a lot of it. So yeah.
That's the best advice. I think we have one more.
See. Oh, wow. Lots of words. Thank you for the thoughtful responses. I personally excel in my networking ability, so this gives me hope. Last question, what skills do you think are most important for success in civil engineering?
It's a good question. I'm going to add that for next year. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mary.
I would harp on communication above all else. I really would, because it's I kind of beat it like a dead horse tonight, but you know, being able to, some of the best engineers are not necessarily the ones that are most technically smart. They're the ones that have the most practical or functional knowledge. And a lot of that goes into how well you can, communicate with shareholders or team members. And, again, too, like I bring it back to the plan kind of analogy, you could be the best engineer math wise, but if you can't effectively draw or do good contract plans that nobody can read, it ain't gonna get built. So, or there's gonna be a lot left to interpretation on the contractor's end. So, that's what I would harp on mostly.
I'll add to the communication that the ability to facilitate a meeting and or ask questions in a meeting that directly pertain to the problem you're trying to solve and the data you're trying to get in order to solve the problem is a very, very useful skill. And it's very easy, even when you're meeting to work on a group project for a class, to kind of talk generally about what the problem is going to be, okay, and then divide out all the tasks and not and miss that step where you have a conversation about what is going to happen, as the big picture and how does that pertain to all the details that need to get done. And I think that one skill set probably is very useful for civil engineering because big projects translate to lots and lots of details in order to get them done. So it's pretty communication heavy, but it's also just being able to go from that like verbal communication to documenting all the details.
I think one thing also I could add to communication, at least what I learned with the interviewing last year, was that like they'll look for your technical abilities and your ability to actually do the job you're getting hired for, but they also want to know like the employers will want to know like would you fit well in a team? Like can you work well with others? And being someone that people want to work with or are happy to be around is also a big like important thing with the actually working in any field, even especially civil.
Great advice, guys. Thank you. Do we have any additional questions?
I don't see any. Nope.
Okay. Well, again, I want to thank you guys. I think this was a very enlightening conversation. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Jen, for helping us out today.
Sure.
And thank you, everybody who joined us. Awesome. So this is someone who just switched to civil engineering, one of our attendees. So we look forward to working with you. Come to the hub and visit us. And if you guys have any questions, I love it. Yeah. So thank you again. And I hope everybody has a great night. I'm going to stop recording now.